Fashion is the most powerful non-verbal communication device that we as humans have. Fashion is a cultural, it's a social, it's an individual thing, and we should be engaging in fashion. It tells people all sorts of things about us. We're constantly communicating to others about who we are, what we stand for, building our self-esteem, building our self-identity, creating personas, using fashion to do that. We're crossing all sorts of different boundaries and different countries and different cultures, trying to work out what sustainable fashion actually is. How do we define it? How do we define what sustainability is all about? My name is Mark Sumner. I'm a lecturer in sustainable fashion at the University of Leeds. I've been working at the university for about 9 years, doing research into all things around sustainable fashion. But prior to that, I worked for the UK's largest clothing retailer, and I was involved in product development, managing supply chains, and spent a lot of time working on sustainability. So as consumers, there's a real big challenge in terms of what can we do. Sustainable fashion, even for someone like myself who's been involved in it for 20 odd years, is really complicated, and I don't know all the answers. And if someone was to give me 2 garments and say, is this one sustainable, is this one sustainable, it's really difficult to work out what's going on. When we think about fast fashion and trying to define what fast fashion is, there are many, many definitions of fast fashion. But I think the most simple view of fast fashion is to be thinking about what fashion used to be. When I started working in the industry in the sort of 1990s, we had 2 seasons per year. And we would develop a range of garments, a range of products for each of those seasons. And once we launched those products, they stayed the same for about 5, 6, 7 months. And what we've seen evolve with the fashion industry is we've moved from the 2 seasons to 4 seasons. And then within each of those seasons, we have different periods of time where we're almost in a position now where brands and retailers are launching new products every week. And this is this idea of fast fashion. We're constantly churning through new products.
We overconsume more than we have ever done before. And I think that sustainability is on the rise, which is a really good thing, but people definitely need to change their consumerism behavior. People believe that they have to follow trends, and social media and all of that definitely contributes with that. Like, they see influencers wear one thing one day and a completely different thing another day, and they think, yeah, I have to follow this trend and then that trend, and then whatever I followed last month I'm just going to throw away because it's not trendy anymore.
That level of enjoyment that we get with product and the amount of time that we measure that enjoyment has got shorter and shorter. So we buy something, we get some enjoyment, and then we see something else over there and we go, well, I want that now.
Fast fashion has so much money. It's such a massive, massive industry with so much money surrounding it that they have the money then to spend making you feel like you want to buy that fast fashion. It's like fast food. It's like an addiction that you can't give up, and the addiction has come from the millions of pounds they can pump into showing you it on social media and advertising and influencers, and it's really difficult then to wean a whole generation off fast fashion. There are people who are making huge amounts of money, not only on like the misery of other people. You know, there are unscrupulous practices on how these garments are being made, which we all know about. No matter how much money they throw at greenwashing or saying something's organic cotton, there's still a huge amount of water and energy used just in making that cotton. And then they will usually go from factory to factory so as you can't see the chain.
When we're talking about fashion and talking about sustainability, the thing that we need to understand is that life cycle. And that life cycle really is about where the raw materials come from, how they go through processing to convert the raw fibre, let's say cotton or polyester, to turn it into fabric and turn it into a garment. We then have what we call a distribution phase, so it's getting the garment from the factory to you as the consumer. We then have you as the consumer doing things with that garment, so particularly washing and drying. And then ultimately, at the end of life, where do we dispose of that garment? What do we do with it? Up to 80% of the water footprint, depending on the product and material, could be related purely down to what you as the consumer do in terms of washing the garment. If you wear the garment and then wash it every single time you wear it, and then let's say tumble dry it, what you're doing is you're skewing the footprint. So we know that washing, dry cleaning, tumble drying, ironing products all have an impact in terms of carbon and water footprint.
A lot of people don't know about guppy bags that you can just pop all your washing in, and it saves from microplastics going down and back into the oceans.
So washing is a really bad thing to do to your clothes in many ways, because it actually causes all sorts of problems in terms of shrinkage, fading, pilling, you know, those little things, little bubbles you get on your jumpers, for example. So let's reduce the amount of washing we do, because that extends the life of the garment, keeps it looking pristine for longer, and it reduces our footprint. And if you're paying the bills for the washing, it saves you a bit of money as well. So there's an interesting trend, I guess, in terms of sustainability, that more and more people are getting on board to this idea that this is really important. In some ways, that's a good thing, although I'd argue this is not about trend. This is about survival, for the planet, for our environment, and for us as human beings. So we have to move it away from this idea that sustainability is a trend. What we also need within this cultural fashion system is consumers being aware of their impact and changing the way they're behaving. And that doesn't mean that we stop buying fashion, but what it means is we have to think of better ways of doing it. So one of the things I would say to consumers is thinking about our purchase. Do we need to buy something? Has something worn out? Does it not fit us anymore? Is it no longer doing the job it's supposed to do? Or do we just need something new to give us a bit of a lift? And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's going through that process of let's not just fall into that habit, and shopping for clothes in many ways is habitual. Let's just stop ourselves and just go, do I need it? Why do I need it? And it's not to say we don't buy it, but it's going through that process of understanding why we might want to buy something. When we've done that, when we've decided that we need to buy something, we then need to think about where we're buying it from. Which brand are we buying it from?
My name's Judy Berger, and I am a sustainability entrepreneur. So I own a number of different businesses, from vintage fairs to mid-century furniture markets to a really big events company called Shop Kilo. Shop Kilo is buy by weight for vintage fashion. We basically pile it high and sell it cheap, and people buy it by weight. I just started realising why are we always buying something new when there's so much that's already been created, and a lot of it is amazing and it's all out there. The whole reason why I set up Shop Kilo is I wanted vintage to be affordable for everybody. So when I tell my friends that dress they bought from Boohoo, it would have cost the same for them to buy a dress at the Vintage Kilo sale at Shop Kilo, they don't understand until they come and see the price. We can sell things really cheap. People who I speak to at my events who have maybe tried Shop Kilo for the first time, they always say they couldn't believe what they found for that small amount of money. You can put a whole outfit together for under £20. So it's sustainable at fast fashion prices. With vintage or second hand or anything that's already been produced and it's being sold again, I think you get hopefully a sense of pride that you are, usually it's an indie business that you are funding. you're not just putting the money into the pockets of already very wealthy, huge, massive companies.
They're getting a massive saving, something totally unique that they're not going to see on anyone else when they're out, and knowing that they are supporting a small ethical business as well.
I'd always encourage anybody not to throw away their fashion. I think a big thing for me is that, especially because we sell clothes so cheap at Shop Kilo, that we always say to people, wear it and then put it on Vinted or Depop. There's more life to that item. If you have bought this awesome jumper from Shop Kilo, you don't have to keep it forever. You can then sell it on, and a lot of the time you can sell it on and maybe even make a profit or break even on that jumper that you've bought from Shop Kilo and worn for the next year or so anyway. So there's so many apps now at your fingertips, and it takes 2 minutes to photograph something and then bob it in the post for people, and I just think it's amazing.
If the garment's still in good condition, it can be worn by someone else. And whether that is through giving it to charity, and whether that charity gives that clothing to people in the UK or whether it's overseas, that's a good thing. It's giving that garment an extra life. It's supporting those charities in terms of their good work. It's doing the right thing. But even if the garment isn't still in pristine condition, we can actually get that garment sold for upcycling or recycling. But avoiding that black bin bag is really important.
My name is Josefin Wanner. I am a fashion designer and a store owner. I'm from Sweden. I started building my own brand, and then about 5 months ago, I opened up my own shop. So Wanner label is an upcycled fashion brand. So everything we do is made from secondhand or reused materials. I'd say upcycling is remaking something that has already been made. I think recycling is better than nothing, but in recycling you still have to go through the whole production process again, which isn't always very sustainable either. So yes, it's better than creating new materials, but it's not as good as just reusing what has already been made. I mean, there's different ways to upcycle with different levels to it. So there are things which you might need a bit more skill to do, and then there are things which you can definitely do with your own sewing machine at home. Not only do I love actually creating something new out of something that I used to like, but it also feels much better to have something in your closet that you actually wear, rather than just something that's laying there for years and years and you never touch it.
I think it's really interesting that there are people who will buy fast fashion and feel absolutely no guilt and wear it out on a Saturday night or whatever, and then maybe chuck it away because it costs nothing, so it means nothing to them. But a lot of people don't understand what goes into producing a product, producing just one garment of clothing.
I think it is hard for the consumer to understand all the work and hours that goes behind actually creating a garment. So for me to make a pair of pants myself would probably take about 5 hours, and then you'd have to take into consideration the amount of time it takes for me to source the material and to create the pattern, and then all the afterwork like putting it on the website and whatever else of admin I have to do, and that all goes into paying myself a living wage. So buying something sustainable, yes, it will cost a little bit more, but it will last you longer because there's been a whole thought process behind it to make it last longer, which is both quality and style. Because I think that that's the biggest issue with fast fashion brands. They don't make things to last because they don't want them to last. They want you to buy something, have it break or go out of style, and then buy something new. It is difficult to make people understand that that is the price that it should cost. But rather than saying that sustainable fashion is too expensive, the right way to put it is that fast fashion is too cheap.
We're all aware of greenwashing, I think, aren't we? When we see this going on all the time, and greenwashing is really basically people trying to make money out of claiming they're doing something that is green, but they haven't substantiated that claim. So making claims about, they are being more sustainable and they've reduced the carbon footprint by 20%, 30%, 50%, but they haven't actually really fully understood what the carbon footprint is, and they haven't really fully understood how they measure that and whether they have made a reduction of 50%. So we see all of these issues going on. But we need to find a way of unpicking that, and I think one of the challenges that we have as consumers is we have to go out and do research. And we need to go and check, we need to go and see what someone's saying about their products and see whether the data is there, see whether it's been substantiated. And if it is, then we have to take it as face value and say, well, that's doing the right thing. But where we see examples of greenwashing, and we can't see any evidence behind it to substantiate that claim, we should challenge it. We should be going out and saying, well, where is the data that's behind that? How can you make that claim? And the more that we do that as consumers, the more that we do that as a society, the less likely we are to have people doing greenwashing, because it's just not worth the effort of doing it. And we'll start to see more and more people engaging with real approaches to sustainability. This idea of consumers taking back control is two sides of the same coin. We can talk about a moral boycott, where we decide that we're not going to buy from an organisation because we don't believe that they're doing the right thing. And I have a growing list of brands that I don't buy from, and sometimes it's quite hard because normally they can be quite cheap or quite convenient or have the product that I want. But I make a decision. Have a moral boycott, I won't buy from them because I don't believe they're doing the right things. The other side of that coin is we have positive buying, where we see brands who are doing the right thing, and we've done the research and we can see that they're protecting the environment and they're doing things to support the workers. We can then shift our buying patterns to them. So we're sort of doing that moral boycott and chivying these people along and saying, look, I would buy from you, but you're not doing the right thing. But rewarding those that are doing the right thing by giving them our money, being involved in that sort of exchange. And that is really positive, because for many years, particularly when I was working in the industry, we were doing all the right things. We knew we were doing the right things, but no one was buying from us. And we started to think, well, is it worth it? So we have a really important role as consumers to avoid those that are not doing the right thing, but try and reward those that are doing the right thing.
Please don't buy fast fashion. Please look for alternatives. Scour the second-hand shops, go into charity shops, shop vintage, shop kilo, come to one of our events. Have a little clothes swap with your friends. There's so many ways that you can get your hands on something new, and it doesn't have to be on a fast fashion website or in one of their stores. It just doesn't. There's other ways. I'd just say to people, please try it for a month or two and try and wean yourself off fast fashion.
Just buy a little bit less. Think a little bit more before you buy. Like, if I buy this, will I actually want to wear it more than just 2-3 times? If the answer is no, then don't buy it.
We are in crisis mode. We cannot wait for school children to come through to become adults to start changing what's going on. We are in absolute crisis. We're almost at the point where things are irreversible. So we need people to take into account what they're doing, whether they're 18 or whether they're 88. Things need to happen now.